So I live in Sebastopol since the late 90s. I moved to Occidental originally, and I am a wildfire risk consultant. So I've looked at thousands of homes, businesses. I've educated people like yourselves, primarily at people's homes. I did this with Joy, so she knows quite a bit about how I do it. Just a few words about me. I was a FEMA crisis counselor before this work, so I got to know people and also special people. I call them first responders. So I'm not a first responder, but I always have them in mind when I'm looking at a property. I'm judging it from their perspective. I like this, I like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And so I speak for them in a way because they're not actually allowed to say, I want A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They're only allowed to speak to the minimum standard. And so I advocate for them. And I'm their peer in that sense, but I'm not a first responder. I'm also on the critical incident stress management team to help debrief first responders on traumatic stress, and I ran mental health programs in the past also. So I'm a certified wildfire mitigation specialist. I found out there's only about 200 people in the world who have my certification. So what I focus on is not selling products or services. I educate people on all the strengths and vulnerabilities of the property. I point out good things and not so good things, and it's entirely up to you what you want to do. I usually sit down, or always sit down with the client, and I educate them about what's important, what the priorities are first. Then we look at the property together, and then we're learning and observing together. And then I provide a summary report with recommendations. So it's very comprehensive. I go over a lot of different things around life safety. So the two fundamentals of wildfire mitigation are structure hardening and defensible space. But I go into personal preparedness, situational awareness, fire weather, early alerts, evacuation, first responders. I'm looking what dispatchers are going to want, and firefighters and law enforcement, EMS, even if it's not a fire. I talk about earthquakes. I cover insurance. I can't promise any outcomes other than reducing risk to you and your property if you follow my advice. Many people do, some don't. And I'm really keen on educating people on what the priorities are. So it's interesting to consider how we've been conditioned as people around pointing the finger. I've done it a million billion times. I'm like, what about her? And what about him? Well, with fire, we look at ourselves and work structure out, not neighbor in, not forest in, not national park in, utility, fire agency. That's all really important stuff, but that's out there. And what we can do is work top down, structure out, 0 to 5 foot zone. Who's heard of that? A lot of you now. Then 5 to 30, 30 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 200, 5 to 30, 30 to 5 to 30, 0 to 5, 5 to 30, 30 to 100, 100 to 200. I apologize for that. In some environments. So it's not eradicating vegetation, it's modifying it. And so I help with that. And I'm an advocate for keeping plants and trees. However, if there's a risk issue, I'll say, this is a beautiful plant or tree. It shouldn't be here. It should be elsewhere. But then there's ways to modify and reduce and do compromises. So if you really like this,
what if your wife really likes
it? Yeah. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, I do a little counseling as well. And one of the ways I do that is I said to Joy, for example, I really want your partner there with me because it's very hard to encapsulate all that I said and all that we saw so you could pass it to your partner. So I'm into reducing risk to life, structure. The insurance is number 3 in that order, and the insurance bill is number 4 in that order.
Do insurance companies have a different level of hurdle in terms of what they want for defensible space around the house, etc.?
Keyword different, yes. They're all different, believe it or not, and I'm glad you mentioned that because they tend to go through a generic list saying, oh, there's these 9 things, and I get there and I'll say, there's this brief inspection, or I can give you a real understanding of what's going on in your property. and the insurance company forgets 4 out of the major things that I saw, but they're asking you to do things that are not relevant or high priority. So because of my training experience, I can see what is site specific, a priority. All the GIS stuff, all the remote sensing, all the AI, all the analysis, I'm all for it, but there's 2 factors that supersede all those other factors, and it's the condition of your property and extreme weather. So you could be on flat ground in a low fire severity zone and have your whole community burn to the ground because the condition of the property and extreme weather. Where you are on the map isn't necessarily a good or bad thing. And I'd rather be actually in a more prepared property in a higher risk zone than, you know, a poorly prepared property and thinking everything's fine. So I'll stop talking in a second. One of the things I also do is I point out, don't spend money on that, spend money here. You don't need to cut down those big trees over there. But honestly, it goes back to really boring stuff, like, you know, maintaining things and keeping things tidy.
It does get boring.
Right? That's not sexy.
Just to reply to the common sense thing, so we had, Lisa and I had Stuart come out, and we learned, and we've had Great and Fire out twice, and we've worked on things over the last 2 to 3 or 4 years, I've lost count. So we've done a lot of stuff, and we've had a lot of awareness, and we learned a lot. So, and I think we have, you know, I think of ourselves as having common sense, and then there's these things that was like, oh yeah, never noticed that. Like a lot of little things, so it was really very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Joy, if you know Joy, she's really smart and she asks really good questions and she already knows a lot and she challenges you. And so I passed muster.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So the 100 feet of defensible space supposed to be around your house does not necessarily mean that it's supposed to be bare ground for
Correct.
100 feet.
That flies all over you.
It's modifying the fuel and making it
Not a good idea.
fire wise. So we want plants, we want trees, we want to maintain habitat, we want to maintain moisture in the soil, we want to have a balance. But there's certain homes I'll say, this home could handle some plants right here, actually. This home, no. It's up to people. The other example is if you have a home that has all single pane windows and it's, you know, it's a nice big home, but you don't have 40 grand for new windows, I'll say move the vegetation, remove and replace away from the windows, which they shouldn't be there anyway, and you will dramatically reduce risk to your home and keep your windows.
Well, and it was crazy time. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see it. Like you're running out.
Yeah,
it's an
yeah.
emergency. You're trying to make sure
Yeah.
you got all your
Thank
stuff.
you for bringing that up. So one of the most important things is fire weather. So fire weather gives us advance warning. So LA had a long time of advanced fire weather. Lahaina had not 4 hours,
Right,
but
right.
4 days advance notice from the National Weather Service saying we have fire weather predicted coming to you. The Palisades fire and the Eden fire and the LA fire, they had 5 days. 5 days. So the question is, what do you do? Nothing, or the right site specific things on your property? So that is the biggest thing. It comes before a red flag alert. So fire weather comes before a red flag alert. Do you do anything with that time? Prep your property. I talk all about that. You know, and leave and get out of the way early, and hopefully have your home self-defended because firefighters can't come to every home.
It's $5. So if you did all 20 items that they recommended, you got, I don't know, it was $125 reduction in a $2,000 insurance bill. Well, who's gonna, I mean, using that as a reason to make a decision, why would you do anything?
Well, good question. Who can answer that for Jack? Why would you do anything?
Do everything.
I'll answer. So I always talk about that, and I'll say, you know, they're going to give you a discount if you do this, and that's important. But what's more important? Don't get hurt. Don't lose the structure. So it's not. So there's Firewise USA communities that you can be a part of, and that will give you a minor discount. But again, it's about doing what you're doing. You're getting to know your neighbors, right? And you're getting to get a little more knowledge, and you have some projects. So the Firewise USA program, it's not a magic bullet. It'll save you 5% on your insurance. That's not the point. the point is working together and reducing risk.
Live at the end of the lane. Our big concern was we might pre-evacuate for fear that we couldn't get out, and so we wanted to figure out how to leave the house as safe as possible. And so we learned a lot of things about what to do if we have, like, I don't know if you gave us the timeline, but like say we had 2 hours to evacuate, what we would do to protect the space, and a list of kind of things that we, of course, hadn't thought of. Again, you've,
And who
I mean, more than, yes, beyond
Yeah.
shutting the door, but like other,
who is sign up with watch duty here?
everybody.
Oh,
You're not?
It's a free
It
app.
just shows up
Okay. And every
when
time I get
there's a
that
vegetation
notification, I
fire
go,
nearby.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend.
Since we're gonna talk to Joy later, but what rule of thumb, are you on an hourly basis, a project
Oh.
basis?
Thank you for bringing that up. So I base my work on how far I'm traveling. This area is obviously, that's not a factor because it's in my backyard, but also the complexity of the property. So it could be a little home here, or it could be a home with different buildings and different features, and it's a bigger thing. But I'm spending a lot of time consulting. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm answering all the questions and then looking at it and then photographing it, documenting it, and then sending the summary report only to you. And then I'm available to answer questions like, well, what do you think about this? Or, I keep the door open in that regard. So the range would be, say, I'm there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I'm doing the summary report. So it's really a lot of high touch consultation, but probably $400 to $600, something like that.